Do you want to know the biggest mistakes that people make after a money setback? They stay stuck in shame for months, sometimes even years, which destroys their confidence and crushes any future success. And I did this too. I know until I discovered these five hidden emotional traps that keep us stuck. Today, I'm going to share exactly what not to do after a financial setback so you can bounce back faster and stronger than ever. But before we dive in, I want to repeat something I talk about all the time, that every single decision we make in life comes down to how we think it will make us feel, whether it's money, relationships, career, business, it's all driven by our emotions. That's why understanding our emotional response to a financial setback is critical for success. So let's explore these five biggest regrets that people have after a money setback so you can avoid them and you can recover faster. The first one are negative thought spirals, staying too long in negative thinking. And there's neuroscience behind this rumination and what's really happening in your brain when you're stuck in that negative thought loop. That voice that keeps saying, I should have known better, I'll never recover. That's your amygdala, your brain's fear center working overtime. And every time you're replaying that financial mistake in your head, you're strengthening those neural pathways, making it easier for your brain to just default to the worst case scenario and stay stuck in this negative thinking thought loop. It's like your mind is creating this well worn path through the forest. And the more you walk, the more it is automatic. But here is the great news, thanks to neuroplasty, that our brains are incredibly adaptable. Just like you create new paths in the forest, you can rewire your thought. The key is catching them yourself, catching them in the act, and choosing to have a different thought. It seems basic, and it kind of is, but it isn't always that easy because our mind just does what our mind does. I'm not just talking about thinking positive. That's like putting a band aid on a broken arm. Instead, I want to share a technique called 3R method: recognize, release, and redirect. When you catch yourself spiraling in these negative thought loops, first just recognize it. Oh, my brain's having a heyday here. It's going down. And it doesn't have to be in a negative way. It can be like, oh, my brain's just doing what my brain does. And then you release it, release the grip on these thoughts, release the temptation to go down and down further. And you can do this by taking breaths. And then finally, when you calm down your nervous system, you can redirect your focus to what you can control right now. There's something that you can control, something you can do, something else you can think that isn't going to keep you going down this negative spiral. So, for example, instead of obsessing over the money you lost, ask yourself, what's one small step I can take today to improve my financial situation? So you're not ignoring the problem. You're just shifting it from panic to something productive that you can actually do. One of my mentors, Sharad Charmaine, who wrote the book Positive Intelligence, he talks a lot about your hand on the hot stove. So when you put your hand on the hot stove, it burning to the bone. And if you kept it there, it would burn your hand through. And the pain on your hand is giving you a message that, ow, I need to remove my hand. And in that same way, when your negative thoughts come, you're going to have them. And then your brain just needs to say, oh, okay, I'm going to pull my hand off the hot stove. The second big mistake is falling into the blame and shame game, getting stuck there. And there's a difference between guilt and shame. And this is something that changed my perspective a lot. Understanding this difference, which is that guilt says, I made a mistake, but shame says, I am a mistake. That difference is heavy. Guilt can be healthy in our lives. It's your internal compass telling you something needs to change, but shame have no purpose at all. Shame is like throwing away the compass altogether and deciding you are permanently lost, you're permanently broken, there's nothing you can do. And when we're dealing with a money setback, we need to notice which voice is louder. Are you thinking, dang, I made a poor investment decision, which is guilt, or I am terrible with money and I always will be? That is shame. And knowing this difference isn't just semantics, it's not just words. It's the difference from learning from your mistakes and being paralyzed by them. Because when we're in shame, we get stuck. We feel like we are the problem and there's no way to move forward. One way to alleviate shame is by having self-compassion, that you're doing the best that you can. You did the best with what you know. And some people feel like if I'm easy on myself, with this mistake that I made, then I'm just going to make the same mistake again. And research shows the opposite is true. That when you have self compassion, it's not just being self indulgent, it's about treating yourself with the same understanding you'd offer to a good friend who's going through a tough time. If you want to try an exercise, you could write this down. You'd say, what would you say to your best friend if they experienced the same financial setback you did? Would you tell them they're a failure? They're bad with money, they are broken? Or would you help them see this is a learning opportunity? You're going to be okay. You would encourage them. You would love on them. You would not pound down like we often do to ourselves. So you can practice this compassion by acting like how you would act to your best friend and act that way to yourself. Everybody needs this emotional safety to learn and grow. The third mistake is paralysis, shutting down. And like I mentioned, this is often what happens when we dig into shame. We feel like there's no hope, no way to come back. It's all about us. We did a bad job. We screwed up. We are bad. And we shut down because our brain is telling us to stop. The reason people shut down is because they feel overwhelmed and their prefrontal cortex of their brain, which is the decision making center, actually gets flooded with stress hormones. And it's like trying to drive with your parking brake on. Your brain is literally stuck in protective mode, making it nearly impossible to think and take action. And this comes from back in the caveman days when tigers were chasing us and our brains had to flood with these chemicals so that we would run and we would know what to do. And we don't have that life anymore, but we still have that brain. So the key is understanding that this response isn't a character flaw. It's not you being a bad person. It's your brain doing exactly what it was evolved to do, protect you from perceived threats. Now, in today's world, we need to train our brains to differentiate between actual threats and temporary setbacks. We can get practical in doing that. So instead of trying to solve everything at once, we just need to create micro wins. Think of it like building a Lego tower. You don't start with the finished picture. You start with one block and one block and one block. For instance, if you're rebuilding your emergency fund, don't focus on the final number. Start with saving $50 a week. Each small win releases dopamine in your brain, creating positive momentum and gradually unfreezing this paralysis. Mistake number four, self doubt spiral, questioning your decisions and your capabilities. Your brain can play tricks on you after a financial setback. You might be thinking to yourself things like, I always make bad money decisions, or everyone else has this figured out except for me. And these are what psychologists call cognitive distortion. They're kind of like a house of mirrors that distort your view of reality. And the tricky part is your brain presents these distortions as absolute truth, making it incredibly hard to see past them. And these distorting thoughts aren't random. They're often rooted in our deepest fears and security about our self worth. And here's the key: recognize those thoughts are distorted. Recognize you're in this house of mirrors, that it's not truth and it's not facts. And that is the first step to breaking their power. And you can do that. One of the easiest things to do is just check in with that self doubt thoughts start coming, write down the thought and ask yourself, is this true? Is there evidence of this? For example, if you're thinking, I'm terrible with money, list down every good financial decision you've ever made, no matter how small. And you're proving to yourself that that thought, that self doubt is not true. It's not accurate. You can even create an inventory of all of the past financial wins and smart financial decisions you've made so that you can look at that. So that when you're feeling this self doubt and these thoughts, you can look back at all of your wins and you can know that that's not true. Then the fifth mistake that people make is they identify themselves as a failure. But what if failure isn't what you think it is? In our success obsessed culture, we've been taught to see failures as the opposite of success. But what if it's actually a very important part of success? Think about it. Every major breakthrough in history came from countless failures. The problem isn't failing, it's misunderstanding what failure means. When you experience a financial setback, your brain tends to categorize it as a permanent state. I am a failure, rather than what it really is, which is just a data point in your ongoing financial journey. It's just information, something to learn. In this identity level interpretation is what makes these setbacks so devastating. If you think of a computer that's playing chess, it loses a game. It does not spiral into self doubt or question its worth. Instead, it does something very interesting. It analyzes that failed move that led to the loss and it updates its strategy. It immediately starts preparing for the next game or the next move. This is what I call strategic detachment, the ability to separate your identity from outcomes. After a financial decision, whether good or bad, just write down the three things that worked, what didn't work, and what you learned. This simple practice helps you build a chess computer in your mind so that every move, even the unsuccessful ones, contribute to the overall growth. Remember, these emotional setbacks are normal. They're part of being human. The key isn't to avoid negative emotions. It's learning to process them. And you can think of each setback like the chess computer, analyze it, learn it, and then you make a better move the next time. Don't let these five regrets keep you stuck in a cycle of self doubt and paralysis. Okay, there you have it, folks. So, next video, we're going to dive deeper into how your brain can get hijacked based on a financial decision or setback. So, check it out here. Remember, you have the power to change your financial future, and I'm here cheering you on every step of the way. And if you want to shine a light on your current money mindset, put quiz in the comments, and I'll send you the free money mindset assessment.